New Mexico Governor Lujan is in some hot water. Apparently, people in New Mexico are not going to be enforcing her new insane ban on the Second Amendment. And she's even catching grief about this from people on CNN saying, do you think you have constitutional authority to do this at all? She has a hard time explaining it. Here's what it sounds like.
Her first national televised interview since issuing this order is the governor of New Mexico, Michelle Lujan Grisham. Governor, thank you for your time this morning. And let's get to exactly that. We just heard from the sheriff. He joins the attorney general and others who say they won't enforce it. It's unconstitutional. Why do it if it can't be enforced?
Well, that's their opinion. They have no bold actions. They don't have any plans for reducing gun violence. Every single aspect in terms of preventing gun violence, funds, crime labs, more than $150 million for retention, bonuses, and recruitment of new police officers. I'm focused on one thing. We have the third highest gun-related injuries in the country, 90% higher than the national average. We lost 143 children between 2017 and 2021. It is unacceptable, and it calls for immediate and swift and bold action. And frankly, the evidence bears out over and over again. Fewer guns on the streets makes everyone safer, and I'm focused on everyone's constitutional rights, not just those the NRA says I should be focused on.
Yeah, it's not just the NRA. Here's one other concern from the sheriff. Here's what he told my colleague Caitlin Collins last night.
In a couple of months or a year down the road, we're the ones stuck in court, and we're the ones getting sued over all of these infringement of rights and all these other court battles when I could be focusing so much more on crime.
Has any law enforcement officer in Albuquerque or the county actually enforced this yet?
Well, we haven't issued any civil penalties, but that doesn't mean that we're not and that we don't have the ability to do that.
But that's a no, right?
This is the pushback I get from every single, it's a no this minute, but that doesn't mean that we aren't, and it doesn't mean that we don't have additional police presence.
Like 4 or 5
and if not this
that have
bold
already
action,
flown.
making sure that you're safe going to the grocery store, you're safe going to a baseball game, you're safe walking on a hiking trail. There are individuals, including young people, where it's illegal today to have a handgun, openly carrying handguns. My question to law enforcement is, where are you? Where are you? In that young 11-year-old, Froylan Villegas, 17 rounds were fired into that gun. 35,000 rounds are fired at least annually in Albuquerque alone. You are not safe going to work, getting your prescription drugs, or going to a public park. And it wasn't just about a cooling off period. It's about making sure that everyone is safer while we do bolder work to get at both the drug epidemic and the gun violence epidemic. And it's not for police to tell me what's constitutional or not. They haven't supported not one gun violence effort in the state of New Mexico, including domestic violence protections, universal background checks. And I know you want to ask me a question, so I'll take a breath, but these are NRA talking points about their rights and not about anybody else's. And it's not a ban. It's a temporary pause so that we can make this community safer.
I hear you.
Rough. So she's scrambling there to try to parse together an argument and just defaulting to the regular talking points about the NRA and about cops don't have any authority to say their piece. They have to follow the little dictator's orders. And if they get an order to violate the Constitution, they better follow it, dang it. She's the governor. And when they don't do it because she's clearly violating the law openly, then she scolds them. Well, they're not doing anything about this and they should work harder. So this is a total collapse of leadership. I mean, it's going to probably wreck her political career. And we'll see. A lot of people, even on the left, are recognizing that this was a little bit of an error, but I'm not so sure about that. I think that what we're seeing here is a lot of good cop, bad cop routine. Okay, you've got this one psycho Democrat who says that she's going to do something that moves the ball way far down the field. So if we go down 20 yards and then they have to move it back 5, that's still a net 15 gain for them. And it's all about moving that Overton window down. So it's this good cop, bad cop routine. She comes out, she's the bad cop. CNN comes out, they're the good cop. Ted Lieu comes out, he's the good cop. Other people say, wow, this is ridiculous. You know, we wouldn't go that far. But maybe they would go somewhat further than where we're currently at. And then what we end up doing is settling at some further point down the line that really leads to the ultimate evaporation of our Second Amendment rights and other rights as well. But this is what the actual letter looked like. So the Attorney General, the gentleman we just heard from a bit, Raul Torrez, sent this over to the Honorable, give me a break, little dictator, Lujan. And this is on September 12th, the letter sent over to her office. And it says, hey, dear Governor Lujan, I'm writing to inform you that my office will not defend your administration in the above referenced cases. And this is about the lawsuits, okay? So look, National Association for Gun Rights versus Grisham, Blas versus Grisham, Donk versus Grisham. She's getting sued into oblivion. We the Patriots versus Grisham. All these civil lawsuits. Boom, 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 boom. Hey, Governor, our Attorney General's office is not going to defend you in these lawsuits, so you better figure it out yourself. You issued this order on September 8th, though I recognize my obligation as the chief legal officer to defend state officials when they're sued in their official capacity. My duty to uphold and defend the Constitution of every citizen takes precedence. Shout out to that guy. Simply put, I do not believe that your order will have any meaningful impact on public safety, obviously, because she's banning law-abiding citizens from exercising their constitutional rights. The people who are doing the shootings and the killings are already breaking the law. But more importantly, I don't believe it passes constitutional muster. It doesn't. As a career prosecutor, gross, I have grieved with too many victims of gun violence not to share your anger and frustration, especially since we had a 5-year-old shot in a drive-by shooting, not by somebody opium carrying in public, and 11-year-old was a road rage incident, also not a public carry incident, right? Both of these are in vehicles, drive-by shooting and a road rage incident. However, I encourage you, Governor, to engage in more thoughtful and deliberative process with members of the legislature rather than taking unilateral action that infringes on the constitutional rights of law-abiding citizens, while having little, if any, discernible impact on the underlying dynamics that drive gun violence. Your order prohibits the possession of a firearm for anyone other than law enforcement and other things like licensed firing ranges and other things. In short, the order prevents individuals from carrying firearms in public for the purpose of self-defense. The reach of this order, despite currently being limited to one county, is highly problematic because it purports to alter lawful firearm possessions in ways that are inconsistent with the Constitution. I agree with you. We do need to, quote, start a debate about guns. But this executive order violates core constitutional principles, and it's not an appropriate method for bringing this debate. The order relies on public health law, which is obviously insane. Simply rebranding gun violence as a, quote, public health emergency is not going to create legal pretext to allow you to do this. While no one doubts the devastating impact that gun violence has had on our community, this is not a public health emergency. It's not properly defined within the law. This is the Attorney General speaking. I've seen what you're trying to do here to sneak this in, to provide justification for this, right? This is the same thing. To be fair to Governor Lujan, she's just doing what the Biden administration does. This isn't anything that is like new. They did this same crap all the time. They said, oh, student loans, we got to waive your student loans because of the pandemic that ended a long time ago. And, you know, they just kept postponing it and then waiving it. And they said, well, we can just write off billions of dollars of student loans using the public health emergency exception. And it's like, that's not really what that was for, but they just make it up. So Lujan is just doing the same thing. And this Attorney General is saying, sorry, you can't do that. In Biden's case, though, the Department of Education, for example, Miguel Cardona, he says, yeah, perfect. No, this is great. We have all of the rights to do all of these things. Don't even question us. So Attorney General says, moreover, considering the extraordinary resistance that many citizens had to COVID, I believe it's unwise to tuck gun prohibitions and bans into the public health emergency. It's near certainty that this order will be found to violate both the U.S. Constitution and the New Mexico Constitution. Why? Because the people have the right to keep and bear arms under the Second Amendment, and that's supported by a bunch of other case law like D.C. versus Heller, New York Rifle versus Bruin, and others. Second Amendment rights are not unlimited, of course, but we do have the right to carry them, including the Bruin court emphasizing that if the right is interfered with, that the law that interferes with the right is presumptively unconstitutional. Okay, Governor? So for these reasons, my office cannot undertake a defense of your order. I strongly encourage you to consider the time and energy devoted to a better solution than this. In New Mexico, they understand that there is no single solution to public safety problems. We need a lot of things like mental health, stricter gun laws, rehabilitation programs, data on gun crimes, and other things. While I understand your frustration, I urge you, reconsider this course of action and redouble your efforts to bring about lasting change through a democratic process. I can and will commit resources and be ready to assist you in building a safer community that we've sworn to protect. Signed, Raul Torrez, Attorney General. And this is just great. So not only are the sheriffs not enforcing it, but also the Attorney General is like, you're on your own on those lawsuits. We're not going to be helping you on those. So thanks for playing. And very interesting. So we'll see where that one goes. I'm not sure if she's going to backpedal on this or rescind it. Remember that by the time these lawsuits evolve and progress through the courts, the ban is probably going to expire, right? It's a 30-day ban. So this is just a little test trial balloon. They're just floating this to see if it sticks. And I think the long and short of it is it is an attempt to see if they can move the Overton window. If we can move the conversation about what the public thinks is acceptable just a little bit further down the line, then that's a win for them, even if this is a loss for Lujan. Nice letter from the Attorney General. Lujan is on her own, as she should be, for violating the Constitution.